What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a midweek edition of the Play Color Sports Talk Show. Man, it's that time of year, man. We've got so much going on between football off season, basketball, everything else. We can't even fit all in the show. So we had to go midweek just to be able to talk some football this week. Make sure y'all tune in Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will be talking a lot of basketball. So come hang out with your boys, talk a little basketball on Friday night.
Yes, sir.
So cool, man. We got to jump into some of the football stuff. It's gonna be a little bit shorter show today. We're not gonna be doing a full hour here like we normally would, but lots of stuff going on in the football world that we need to discuss. So first of all, let's go and kick it off with this. One of the stories that's kind of going out there right now, which is that the owners' meetings are going on, and there's a couple of proposed rule changes in place. The three that we're going to talk about today is number one, getting rid of onside kicks, or not getting rid of them, but giving teams an alternative option. One of those is stealing the 4th and 15th idea from the XFL. So for those of you who maybe aren't looking at your screens right now, my co-host has already let you know what his feelings are on that. I'm going to let him express those verbally here in a second, though. Also, the rule to actually go back to allowing teams to have a third emergency quarterback on the roster that will not count against their game day rosters. And finally, we talking about possibly reviewing these penalties for roughing the passer. So let's break these down. So let's go ahead and start off with the one that I know you've got a definite opinion about, man. This 4th and 15 rule as an alternative to the onside kick.
First of all, Philadelphia Eagles are the ones that proposed this. So clearly, at least someone within the organization is watching the XFL. Let's allow that rule to stay where it's at the XFL. It works great for the XFL. I don't want to see that in the NFL. Maybe something as an alternative, okay, but let's not go steal the XFL's rule, right? Let's be original. Let's actually come up with something that, is original. Also, man, it's a different game. You have to understand the NFL is more of a traditional league when it comes to certain things, right? It's taken a lot of time to get, guys to be okay with players kneeling, right? It got Colin Kaepernick ran out of the NFL not too long ago. So we're still, in this league, where my if my projections are correct, 31 of the 32 owners are not people of color. So we're not in a league that's going to allow innovative changes, I think, anyway. But I think expecting them to pass something that you brought over from the XFL is even more asinine than something else. So I just think it's not a great idea to do. Maybe you can figure out an alternative, but let's figure out something besides the XFL's actual rule that we've seen 8 or 9 times at least in the last 2 weeks. Do better.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing. I'm not necessarily opposed to them stealing from the XFL because, I mean, it's what everybody does, right? Everybody steals from each other. It's not like that's new. So I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I don't have a problem with it. I'm also not opposed to them trying to come up with something unique. But I will say this. The question I would ask is not should they be taking from the XFL, but do we actually like the idea of this 4th and 15? Because I don't trust the NFL to come up with their own stuff and not find some way to mess it up. I feel like if they try to be unique with this, they're going to start adding a bunch of complexity to it that's unnecessary.
Well, they're going to do that if they adopt it too. I don't like the rule from the XFL. I might take certain things, but this is not something you want to take.
Yep.
This is just not the one. Let's not do this.
Yep. I mean, I will say I do like the idea of trying to come up with some kind of alternative to onside kicks because let's be honest, man, onside kicks are like how often do we really feel like they're going to get recovered, right? I mean, it's kind of exciting when a team does get it because it feels so improbable, but that's not a frequent thing, man. Like we're not seeing that happen a lot. So I think giving teams another chance, and then the NFL. We talked about this a couple times on the show, right? They clearly want games to be competitive down to the wire, right? I mean, every week they send us here in the media an email out that kind of recaps all the things that happen. And in those emails, they go on and on about how close the games were, how many close games were, how many games have been decided by less than a point, how many games were decided in the last 2 minutes. Like they go on and on about this stuff. It's clearly important to the NFL to have games come down to the wire. So anything you could do that might increase the likelihood of a team being able to get the ball back without, I mean, obviously, we don't want to make it too easy, right? We don't want to make it automatic, but anything you can do that's going to make it more competitive, I think is going to get the NFL what they want.
True, but I still think this is the way. I mean,
Yeah.
let's try something more simple, like something crazy. So it's 10 yards in between. Let's push the defense back 5 more yards. Right? Let's give a little bit more room for the guys to get the ball. Let's allow them to be a half a step over the line. Maybe before the ball's kicked. Let's allow the ball to be kicked at the same time that they're getting over the line. Things like that.
Yeah.
Right? Let's do some things like that versus adopting something that's completely to the left. That's where I'm not impressed and where I think it could be done better.
Yeah. I think there's other, XFL rules that I would rather have seen you adopt. Not necessarily like take the rule verbatim, but the XFL has some opportunities for 2 point plays, 3 point plays, different things like that. So maybe some different options in terms of scoring or different things the teams could go for that would, allow a team to erase a deficit easier might make more sense and add a little bit more strategy to it. But again, like I don't want to just see them just outright take what the XFL did and be like, oh, here's a 3 point play.
Well, unoriginality is another thing with the NFL. If they did adopt a rule, they would find 70 different ways to make it not a play. Because on fourth, if you go for it on fourth, and there's a penalty, you don't get to retry it again. If it's on you, if it's on the defense, it's still you have to still do the full 15 yards, or it'll be some foolishness, right?
They'll have some nonsense like if it's defensive holding that it's a automatic first down, automatic conversion, and you get the ball.
If you're the Chiefs,
Yeah, of course. It won't count as a catch or a pass or anything else, regardless what the outcome is. So yeah, I mean, again, man, I think just coming up with something to maybe make it a little bit more exciting instead of having to rely on onside kicks, I think is a good idea. This may not be the right way to go about it, but at least it's getting the wheels turning, hopefully, of thinking about doing something a little more exciting than an onside kick.
you have more faith than I do, sir.
I didn't say face her. I said hopefully. Hopefully that's
Hope, hope, faith. You have more faith just by your hope than I do, sir.
so the rule to me that's just an absolute no brainer is the third active QB. This is something the NFL actually had up until about 11 years ago. Uh, the reason they got rid of it was because people started using it to have extra offensive linemen or extra defensive linemen or whatever, instead of using it for the quarterback position, which is what it was intended for. And instead of completely getting rid of the rule, you should have just made the adaptation and said this extra slot can only be used for a quarterback. And with the understanding of it's an emergency quarterback. If this person comes in the game, no one else can come back into the game barring an injury. Right? It's that simple. Because what we ended up having happen in the NFC Championship game should never have happened in the NFL game, where you're literally sitting there making a guy who has a torn ligament in his elbow and can't even throw the ball more than like 5 yards out there trying to play. If you're going to talk about player safety and all this other stuff, that is not a situation we should have ever had to have put that young man in.
This is the same NFL that we're just talking about. Now you have hope that they'll make a change um, positively to the. They won't. They'll never make positive changes. You know why?
Against her, I have no hope.
They're idiots. There's no belief, no nothing. Here's the problem with the NFL, and it's been well documented. It's very clear. The NFL does not care about the players. Okay, the NFL
No.
does not care if you go out there and you have to play injured. The NFL doesn't care if you have concussions as long as they can cover it up. Fact of the matter is, all you had to do was start penalizing teams if they put anybody besides a quarterback in an emergency position. That's all you had to do.
Mhm.
The person has to be listed as a quarterback on your roster and
Yep.
able to play quarterback. If you put anybody that's not listed, hefty fine, not a slap on the wrist, a hefty fine, and one of those fines that are like um, the luxury tax in the NBA. You get fined more than once, it doubles the second time. It doubles again the third time. Then it triples the fourth time. You just make it keep going up. Make it
Yep.
so it's financially unhealthy for teams to do it. And also, I mean, you can even go as far as if, like, you know what? You do it over 4 times, we're taking your first round draft pick.
Yeah. I mean, I say just you don't allow it to happen at all. Like you don't have to worry about the fines. Like it's physically impossible for you to put somebody else on there. And if you want to designate someone as a quarterback who isn't really a quarterback, then that person is your emergency quarterback. You can classify them as whatever you want, but if they're your emergency quarterback, they're not allowed to come into the game unless
Right.
you can
But I'm
enter
saying
to
on
the
top of
to the
that,
two quarterbacks.
right. But I'm saying on top of that, if you find the person they put in is not an actual quarterback, find them on top of that.
Hey, listen, if you want to bring in an extra person to play as your emergency quarterback, knowing that person can't come onto the field for any reason other than throwing the football, if that's the decision that you choose to make, I think you've already punished yourself.
Find them.
Fine them. Okay. And then, the last rule change, man, is just, and you talk about not having any hope or faith in the league, right? This is the one. This idea of, oh, we need to make roughing the passer reviewable. Why bother? Why bother? We all saw multiple times this year where clearly roughing the passer was the wrong call. And the NFL came out after the fact and defended it and said it was the right call. They're not going to overrule any of these roughing the passer calls unless there is indisputable video evidence that you truly did not rough the quarterback. That is going to maybe happen 1 out of 10 times because most of these calls are close enough that the NFL is going to say, oh, it's kind of close, but, it's not really enough to overturn it. And all you're going to do is waste the challenge flag.
So the NFL won't even really define what a catch is. It differs every situation.
Yes. I don't even know what a
So
catch is anymore.
so if the league won't even define what a catch is, one of the most consistent acts in football, do we really expect that same league, that asinine in an entity, to actually get it right on replays for roughing the passer? And the answer to that question should be no. If the answer is anything besides no for you, then whatever you have that has you in a higher level of thinking must be a very strong product.
Yeah.
This NFL is not going to ever, again, back to what I said earlier, They don't care about the players. They're not going to ever define these things. They're not ever going to do what's fair, which would be, you know, openly reviewing passing. I mean, excuse me, not roughing the passer. So the thing is, roughing the passer, it has to be what's considered um, an act of taking the passer to the ground purposefully, right? I mean, I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
Not just you're throwing, I'm running at you, I can't stop, so I grab you, but I don't drive you into the ground. The important part is driving the person into the ground. If I hit you and you fall, it's one thing, but if I hit you, you've already thrown the ball, I hit you, I drag you to the bound, and I slam you, that's roughing the passer. If I'm coming at you full speed, you throw the ball the last second, and then I hit you after that, that's a football play.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm running at you and your own lineman pushes me into you, that's not roughing the passer. But see, all these things are not going to be taken into account, even if they do it. Why? Because they're going to say exactly as you were saying, we talked about before. They're going to say, oh, it's not, it has to be indisputable evidence to overturn. And I don't see indisputable evidence because they're full of hogwash.
Yep. Yeah.
And they spew poppycock.
And here's my thing, man. It's like everything is very dependent upon who the quarterback is, right? And we've talked about this numerous times, but let's be legit for a second. If what happened to Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game had happened to Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, there would be a rule in place right now that says that you cannot hit a quarterback's arm while he's in the process of trying to throw the football.
Well, definitely if it was Tom Brady. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you can hit quarterbacks in the legs before Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the first quarterback to be hurt or out for a year, or his career ended by injury to his legs from
It,
getting hit.
it's only a matter of time before we just put flags on the quarterbacks.
Hey man, I'm all for putting flags on next year with my quarterback.
Hey man, I kind of wish we had flags on our quarterback this year. Definitely would have hurt a lot less to get your flag pulled. So yeah, so that's the rule changes, man. Another big story that's kind of popped up this morning that we'll go ahead and talk about is this Jalen Carter story. So for those who have been under a rock, not really familiar with what's going on, uh, think back, I guess it was a couple of months ago now that we had a recruiting analyst for the University of Georgia, along with one of their players, unfortunately lost their lives in a car accident. And this morning, Jalen Carter had an arrest warrant listed for his arrest in Athens for speeding, racing, and reckless driving. Both misdemeanor charges, by the way. Now, he is projected to be a top 4 pick in the draft. And the allegation is basically that he was racing against the other car at the time. Uh, the racing and the fact that the young lady who was driving was twice the legal limit on her blood alcohol levels is what contributed to the crash. So, a lot of people are kind of looking at this situation, I think, and seeing how's he going to handle this, right? And he's come out and made the comment that says, hey, some of the stuff that's being reported is not 100% accurate. I'm confident once everything is out there, I'm going to be completely cleared. Which to me is kind of a bold statement because I'm feeling like the police probably aren't going to put a warrant out for your arrest unless they have some video evidence that you actually were racing. Right? I mean, you're not being charged with like murder or manslaughter or anything like that right now. You're being charged with reckless driving and racing. So to me, unless you weren't doing anything, why not just be honest about it? Why not just say, yes, I was speeding, it was stupid, I made a mistake, blah, 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 right? Like, is this something that's going to keep him from getting drafted? Absolutely not. Is it something that might make him fall maybe out of the top 10 if it comes out that he's not being truthful? Maybe. But at the end of the day, man, I think this is just kind of a big story because we unfortunately had two people lose their lives. But outside of that, if no one had gotten injured or killed in this, I don't even think we'd be talking about it.
That I'd agree with. I think that we first need to see um, if the accusations are true. Right. I think we need to take and wait and see attitude because we need to see if the accusations are true.
Right.
Um, he sounds pretty adamant that there was no wrongdoing on his part. Normally, if somebody's that adamant, there's some truth to what they're saying because you are not going to help yourself by lying once you've been accused.
Hmm.
There's no positive that could come from him for lying at this point in the investigation. So I have to believe that at least his truth, because sometimes your truth isn't the same as everybody else's, a la LeSean McCoy. Um, that's something else I would like to talk about as well. But I think that when you look at it, what you're really thinking about here is if the allegations are true, he's going to drop a little bit, but he's still a talented player. And at the end of the day, these teams don't care if you're a scumbag or not, as
Yeah.
long as you don't do anything that removes your talent from their team. And if you do, oh well, we'll just replace you with somebody else because you're off the books, because you have a morality clause in the contracts.
Yeah.
So I think that if it is true, it's going to hurt him a little bit because he's so adamant about it not being true. I think if it wasn't for that, he'd be fine.
Yeah.
I think the fact that he's so adamant about, oh, it's a lie, it's not true. If it ends up being true, it's like, bro, you did all this and you knew that, you were lying the whole time. That's
Yeah.
becomes a concern more so than the racing itself
Yeah.
and the poor decision making.
Yeah.
Either way, he's a first round pick. It just may be later in the first round or earlier in the first round, just depending on the outcome of of this whole situation. And as you said earlier, the most saddening part of it is two people lost their lives.
Yeah.
That's the part that should really be focused on. There's two families that have lost, a child, a sister, a brother, aunt, uncle, grandchild, cousin, whatever. So that's the sad part in this entire situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, man, it's like, look, we were all young. We all did stupid things, right? But, you know, it's one of those things where you really just hope that if anything comes out of this, that's that wake up call to somebody to not get behind the wheel of a car, especially when you're intoxicated.
Hmm. Agreed.
So tell me about Mr. McCoy. What shady done did now, man?
So we didn't get to talk about this on Friday, but McCoy has had some disparaging statements about Eric Bieniemy.
Okay.
McCoy's basically been saying that he does that Bieniemy didn't call plays, and just really being very, in pun intended, shady towards Eric Bieniemy. So other former players, I don't have the entire list in front of me, but a litany of former players: Jamal Charles, um, several current players, Tyreek Hill, and some other former like running backs, players from the team have all said it's not true. That he was a big part of the play calling when they were there. That he was very respected in the locker room. That he helped out a lot with developing careers.
Mm,
So essentially, McCoy came out with some hate, hating on him, saying that he doesn't call plays, he doesn't know how to be an offense coordinator, he's not gonna, he was a bad candidate for the position. But the problem is, you're the only one saying that. There's no one else corroborating your story.
right.
The other 10 or so people that have came out have all said, "Nah, that's not true." And some have even insinuated that you may be a little butthurt because of your playing time, because you started for about what 7 or 8 games or something like that, and then you ended up on the bench watching the team get a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
which you got a ring for, but you may be a little butthurt because of that. So I'd like to say to LeSean McCoy, man, the hate is sad,
Yeah.
right? And this came from a source that actually is connected to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they did have the receipts. I don't have the information there to show now, but they did have the receipts where the other players were saying, "Nah, bruh, Like basically, that's cap, bro. They even some of us like stop capping and put the caps up there, all that.
Yeah.
So when you make these egregious statements for shock value, people like LeSean McCoy understand that people are going to call you on your BS. And then you have Emmanuel Ocho talking about, oh, you know him really well. They played together for a year, and he clearly didn't like him. So how well does he really know him? Stop your capping too. Ocho, you're trying so hard to be the next Skip Bayless, the next Stephen A. Smith, that you're making me disgusted when I hear your name and things now. Right? Not here for that, bro. Report what's really happening. If you don't know, do what a solid journalist should do and get your facts together. 1 year does not make someone a expert on a coach. So stop your capping as well.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, man. We just got through talking about, the Jalen Carter thing, right? And we just got through saying that if he was in fact, racing the other car, he was speeding, he should just say it, right? He should just say, look, I made a mistake, it was stupid, whatever, right? I'm personally tired of watching us hold these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids accountable while allowing grown men who work in the media to just outright tell lies about people. People like LeSean McCoy need to get called out. Because, like you said, the thing is, you clearly are the only person that seems to believe this. How could it be that you're the only person from that locker room that's willing to speak up?
I also want to address all the media and podcasting people that were running around as soon as he said it. Ah, that's it. I know that's it. He can't call plays. I do it. That's why he can't get a job. I'll tell you a secret. I'm gonna tell you finitely why Eric Bieniemy is not a head coach. Andy Reid did not do what he did for the other guys. Andy Reid did not call an organization and say, "This is the guy you should hire." I vouch for him. He knows what he's doing. He did that for Nagy. He did that for Peterson. And he did that for other guys. He did not do that for Eric Bieniemy. But you know what? Eric Bieniemy is going to end up in a better situation. He's going to have a better group of talent around him. Hopefully, they're going to put a quarterback back there that can win now. And I believe if you're taking this deal, you're getting the assistant head coach title. Wink, wink. You're getting a pay raise. Then you got a little wink, wink going on, and it's not twitching. It's purposefully a little wink, wink deal, a little sign deal. Like, hey, Ron Rivera's on the way out of here, bro. Come over here, do your thing. When Rivera's gone, we slide you over one chair, and you run the thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, man. Honestly, when it comes to your Bieniemy, I'm kind of at the point where I want to see him get a head coaching job, and I want him to get a good head coaching job. I want him to get a job where there's already talent, where the roster's already kind of at least semi decent. Because it's hard to get a job where you already have a really good roster because those coaches usually don't get fired, right? Unless somebody retires, you just don't get to go take over a roster that's already fully built. So, for me, I hope he gets to go to a good situation because, quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing about him. I want this dude to go get an opportunity. I want it to be a really good opportunity so we can just find out once and for all. Does he deserve to be a head coach? If he goes out and he succeeds, I don't care that he got a really good situation. If he's successful, he's successful. And if he goes out there in a good situation, he falls flat on his face, then all the people that have been naysaying him will be able to say we were right. But
Then,
either way, let's just get this man a job and see what it is. Because
but then even
you
if
know,
he gets one, the first one he doesn't have to do well in because there's a lot of people that don't do well in the first job. But he has to at least get the opportunity. Now, a bit
yeah,
of breaking news for you here in the last hour. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but the judge has ruled that Brian Flores can take the NFL to court for the discrimination case
okay,
versus the NFL and three teams. Um, the league asked for arbitration. Judge ruled he could take it to a court for discrimination against those three teams in the NFL. So that'll be interesting. A lot of people felt like this was going to stop Flores from getting opportunities, but he is going to be a defensive coordinator next year. Obviously, not for one of those three teams, but
Yeah, obviously.
he's going to get that opportunity, and he also gets to take the case, to the next level. So that's great to hear, because I
Yeah,
do feel like it's something that needs to be addressed and needs to be seen. The evidence needs to be laid out so we can see how those organizations were operating and how the NFL allowed those things to happen.
yeah,
And I'm also happy that it will at least stop him from being a coordinator.
yeah,
Now, if he wins this lawsuit, I don't know if he's ever a head coach again in the NFL,
yeah.
but at least he's a coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, man, we do have laws in this country that are supposed to protect you uh, in situations like this, prevent you from being discriminated against later on, right? Uh, I don't know that that's actually going to happen because there's always ways around that, as we've seen with you mentioned Colin Kaepernick earlier. There was a lot of convenient reasons why Colin Kaepernick never got brought in. And while Colin Kaepernick certainly had his issues, he was more than good enough to, at a minimum, be a backup quarterback on somebody's team. So the fact that he didn't even get brought in to be a backup quarterback was, a pretty clear sign as to what was going on. Uh, like you said, to me, and I didn't see anything about this. This is the first time actually hearing about it. So this is my real time reaction here. Is like you said, I hope that they're actually going to be very open and showing us what's going on so that we can actually see what happened, right? This doesn't need to be something that only the NFL sees and that they can just cover up to however they want. Hopefully, this is something that publicly we'll be able to see what is actually getting presented, what's actually going on. Because while I'm sure that the NFL of today is nowhere near as discriminatory as, say, the NFL in the 1960s or the 1970s, there is obviously still discrimination that happens. Some of that may be conscious, some of it may be unconscious, you know, stuff that's going on. But the fact is, it is still happening. There are still systems in place that are limiting opportunities for certain individuals, and that needs to be addressed. And the only way we're going to be able to address that is to actually see the things that are going on and have them things be brought out publicly.
Absolutely. And two more pieces of quote unquote breaking news, at least one of them.
Okay.
Um, the Giants and running back Saquon Barkley are moving very close to getting a deal done for him
Okay.
to stay with the Giants. I don't think that's much breaking news, but yeah. And then also, um, the Houston Texans new head coach DeMeco Ryans told reporters the team will look to add at the quarterback position through free agency and the draft. Again, I don't think it's breaking news, but it's at least worth noting that it has been said,
So,
right?
so I will say in regards to the news on the Texans, that's my take on that. The shock face. Not
For
really
both
though.
of Yeah, for both of them, mine is no.
So, well, the Giants one to me is a little bit of news, right? Only because the question really was, are they going to potentially franchise Saquon? Are they going to let him walk? Are they going to actually be able to work out a deal? Are they going to, prefer to maybe have to use the franchise tag on Daniel Jones, right? So there was all those kind of questions about between those two contracts, how they were actually going to do it. So it's a little bit of news, but it's not a shock, right? It's nothing surprising. We all knew that they want to do this, and which speaking of Daniel Jones, I had to laugh, man. These all these reports coming out talking about, oh, Daniel Jones asked for $45 million a year. I don't believe that. I do not believe that at all. Now, would I believe that his agent may have referenced how other quarterbacks are making that kind of money? Sure. Because anytime you go in negotiation, you're going to go in high, right? But Daniel Jones doesn't realistically expect to make $45 million a year. There's no way he actually expects to make that. I refuse to believe that Daniel Jones actually believes that could happen. But I will say this: if Daniel Jones wants, because look, let's be realistic. The franchise tag I think is like 32 million. So you're going to have to pay this dude at least 30 million a year if you sign into like a longer term deal. He's probably going to make around like 35, right? Um, even if you only sign like a 2 or 3 year deal. But honestly, if I'm the Giants, man, I'm just if I can get this deal with Saquon done, I'm just slapping a franchise tag on Daniel Jones, and I'm going out and trying to find me a quarterback. And I'm seeing what we can do. If somebody was to come along and give me draft pick compensation for Daniel Jones, cool.
Agreed. I think, man, um, you clearly were going to get the deal done with Saquon. Saquon, especially with the injuries, meaning the legs are still pretty fresh, was the guy that you needed to sign.
Yeah,
Um, Brian Dabble took a quarterback that no one else could do anything with much and made him look solid. So
yeah,
if he could do that with Daniel Jones, what if you give him a Derek Carr, right?
yeah,
What if you give him, even a backup? What if you give him a Gardner Minshew, right? Come on. And these are guys that you probably can get for less than what a Daniel Jones may or may not want. So I
yeah,
think it's just a matter for me on that one of, hey, we know something needs to happen, whether it's Daniel Jones or somebody else. And I think that market being there is also going to give the Giants some ammunition to say, hey, whoa, 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 whoa. Daniel Jones had one good year. He's been in the league 4 years. We did not extend him for his fifth year because of how he played up until the fourth year.
right.
So, I think there's going to be some things there too. It's not going to be just because he had a good year, all of a sudden he's getting paid as a top tier quarterback.
Yeah,
I expect something short term to get done between Daniel Jones and the Giants. You know, maybe like a 2 year prove it deal or something of that nature.
yeah,
Saquon, I mean, he is a running back. So if you sign him, I'm sure it's going to be 4 years or less,
yeah,
maximum 4 years for the deal, because we've seen what's happened to some of these other guys, even injured guys, because, you still got to recover from the injuries. But he did have a great year last year. So did Daniel Jones. And I'm happy for both of those guys that they managed to do it in years where, they're going to be able to capitalize at least somewhat off of it.
yeah. Now, what my thought process here is, I think Daniel Jones is going to want at least a 4 year deal, right? He'd be stupid to sign anything less. But what they can do is they can do a 4 year deal, maybe even a 5 year deal, but they can give him a good bit of guaranteed money, and they can do it in those first 2 years, to where that third and fourth year are basically just voidable years, where the team's going to carry a little bit of dead cap money if they have to, but they're going to be able to make this contract work. It's going to give the impression that they're committing to him, but it's really going to be a 2 year deal that's basically masquerading as like a 4 year deal. Is what I think will ultimately end up happening. And then
We'll see,
hey,
man. We'll see.
and then if you're happy with Daniel Jones after 2 more years, then you got him. So we'll
We'll see
see.
how it goes, man. We'll definitely see how it goes.
Yeah, but I think when you start talking about some of the quarterbacks that are available, man. Obviously, the big name out there right now is Derek Carr, because he's a free agent. It's not going to cost anybody anything to get him. They don't have to trade any assets for him or anything else. The three teams that he is been rumored to be in contact with: the Panthers, the Saints, and the Jets. So for me personally, if I'm him, out of those three situations, the Jets are going to be the most appealing job to me.
We got to think, man, there's going to be more than just those three, right? The Texans, they're going to need a quarterback. Whether they draft one or not, they're going to need a quarterback, right? There's several more teams that are going to need a quarterback. So he has more than three options. I know there's a lot of people talking about it's like three teams, but think about the Seahawks, right? They can use Derek Carr. I would take over what they currently have at quarterback, or you start looking at some of the other teams. There's other teams out there that are going to be looking for a quarterback.
Well, there's another team out there that I think has to at least consider, right, whether they want to, look at somebody or not, and that's Miami.
Yeah,
Because I know you're talking about, oh, we want to have Tua back and all this other stuff, but you can't deny that there's concerns. There's got
agreed.
to be concerns. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I think, Aaron Rodgers is the name we keep hearing. He's come out of his darkness retreat and will be making decisions soon. So ridiculous. But you can tell, man, he's pretty much worn his welcome out in Green Bay. Their general manager came out and basically said we're just tired of Aaron's crap, and Jordan Love's ready to start. So I felt like that was basically the Packers' way of saying, look, get your stuff together. If you want to be here, cool. If not, just tell us and we'll trade you.
I mean, I'm gonna go further. I think it was them basically saying, we don't want you no more. We can't win with you. Why keep paying you what, 50, 60,000, $60 million a year, and we can't even win with you? We can take that money and do so much else with it. Bye. Go find yourself somewhere to go, and we'll holler at you. And I
Yeah.
mean, we talk about teams that are gonna need a quarterback. You got to put Green Bay on that list because Jordan Love hasn't proved anything in the NFL, right?
Right?
You know, if we're thinking about teams, the Patriots really need a better quarterback. The Dolphins could possibly need a quarterback. The Jets need a quarterback. I would rock with Mike White, but you know, you could look to upgrade, right?
Yeah.
The Raiders are going to need a quarterback. Obviously, Derek Carr is not going to go back there, but the Raiders are going to need a quarterback.
The Bucks are going to need a quarterback.
Yeah, the Bucks are going to need a quarterback. You know, we don't really know with the Browns yet if that's going to work, but we at least have to give that a shot, right?
Yeah,
The Titans
they're at least committed.
The Titans need a quarterback. The Colts need a quarterback. Texas need a quarterback, and that's just in the AFC. You know, you start talking about the NFC. The Giants can need a quarterback. The Commanders could, need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Your 49ers may need one at least to start the season because you don't know how the other guys are going to be. If you think they're going to be back, then you're pretty good. But, if not, you may want to look at somebody, maybe not a starter, but at least like a quality backup that could start the season. The Seahawks could be looking at a quarterback. The Rams could be looking at a quarterback. Kyler Murray may not be healthy in time to play, so the Cardinals could be looking for a quarterback.
Yeah.
The Vikings need a quarterback. You may not be looking, but you need one. The Bucks need one. The Panthers need one.
The Vikings don't need they don't need a quarterback. They need a relief pitcher.
Let me just say this: the whole NFC South.
They need somebody to come in and play. Look, they need to bring a bullpen in. Have a different quarterback they can play in prime time.
The whole NFC South needs a new quarterback. So there's several teams out there that need quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like it's interesting to kind of see some of the way that teams are reacting right now with all the quarterback needy teams out there, right? Some of these guys are going to go and give the young guys a chance. Washington might give Sam Howell an opportunity. Atlanta cut Mariota, which isn't a surprise considering the way he just kind of bailed on the team last year. But so they may just see what they got in Desmond Riddler. Like you said, Tennessee, they're kind of committed to Tannehill for right now, but how long that lasts, nobody knows.
Tennessee needs a quarterback.
I think we talked about what Daniel Jones wants. Listening to Seattle talk about possibly getting a quarterback makes me think that Geno is asking for more money than what Seattle thinks he's worth.
And it doesn't have to be a lot because you never know how they feel about it.
Yeah. So whatever that number is, it may be a little higher than what Seattle is comfortable paying. San Francisco, like you said, I don't see them going after a big name quarterback,
Right.
but they're definitely going to bring in a veteran backup at the least. So that will be an interesting situation to kind of keep an eye on. One guy we know won't be in San Francisco is Jimmy Garoppolo.
We do know that is true.
It seems as that relationship is completely soured.
Kind of sounds like the one with the Raiders. But there is one other thing we might as well go ahead and talk about while we're here, sir.
Okay.
I know we already did about 45 minutes, but we got to talk about this one.
Go ahead,
Daniel
sir.
Snyder is demanding the NFL and the owners indemnify him against future legal liability if he sells the Commanders or he'll sue. So now there's talk of removing Snyder again. That's pretty much so.
Hold on. Let me give you my thoughts on Daniel Snyder's demands. That's my thoughts on Daniel Snyder's demands.
So there's two parts to this. First of all, you saying I want to get rid of him is the reason why he's saying I want to be indemnified against any future, legal liability, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's saying that. So it does sound ridiculous. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's something that the NFL could guarantee anyway, because here's the thing: you have cases for stuff that you've done that's already out there. You're gonna have to pay for those, whether you sell the team or not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to say like, "Hey, y'all can't come after me no more with stuff after I sell the team," anything that happens after that, okay, but you're not going to be able to be indemnified because a lot of this goes above the NFL. The
Yeah.
NFL can't tell someone who used to be a cheerleader that you sexually harassed, that wants to come out now that you're gone and feels confident, that they can't sue you. So
Yeah.
yeah, your soundbite was perfect. The reason I wanted to mention that was this shows just how stupid Daniel Snyder is.
Mm-hmm.
You're about to sell a team or be forced to sell a team and get record money, but you want the NFL to say no one can sue you. How is that even possible?
It's like he's just holding on for dear life here, right? Just like anything he can do to try to push not having to sell a team, or if he is forced to sell the team, he's trying to come out of this with something. He doesn't even care if what he says even makes sense at this point.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is they're going to remove him. They're going to just have to force him to sell the team, and then you're going to be just disgraced former owner. I thought that when you went and retained the firm, you were saying, all right, whether I agree with it or not, I understand what's happening here. So let me go ahead and keep it moving. But in true Daniel Snyder fashion, you are tone deafless and an idiot. So congratulations. Just as your Sean Taylor memorial was trash, here's another thing you're doing wrong. And that's not going to change as long as you're the last person that has to sign off, because you're an idiot.
Yeah. And I think the other interesting aspect of this story is the fact of this came out the what the FBI is looking at is this $55 million loan that you took out, basically using the team to get this loan. So use team money pretty much to do this without getting the consent of the other minority owners, which you are using the money, at least in part, to buy out said owners, which is why you didn't seek their permission to do it in the first place. But what makes this interesting is the fact that those minority owners went to the NFL and said, look, we question where he got these funds, right? And the NFL refused to look into it. They just, voted for him to be able to get rid of these minority owners. So that's going to also be very interesting to see kind of what ends up happening with that, because obviously the NFL was complicit in allowing that to happen because they were told about it and they chose not to look at it. Which again, it's almost like we pointed out before that there are two sets of standards in the league about how they treat players versus how they treat owners. It's almost like there's two sets of standards, man.
It's crazy.
So real quick, did you want to point out for those who may not be aware, we got about 6 more days for teams to apply the franchise tag. Then March 15th, free agency starts. So it's about to get real. So we'll probably be doing a couple of episodes that'll probably be shorter than this one. But as free agency kicks off, we'll probably do a couple of special episodes just on keeping you guys up to date with what's going on with free agency. And then we have our live draft show. So make sure y'all tune in for that when it's time. But as of right now, only one franchise tag has been used. That was Deron Payne, which a smart tag to use on that one. But got about another 5 days here to see who else is going to get tagged. So we'll see. It'll be exciting.
Yeah, man. So stay tuned. Friday night. Anything happens between now and then, the boys got you. We're gonna be live. We'll have some guests with us, but we're gonna be live.
Yep.
We got you. This is
Yep.
your source.
So
NFL.
if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and hit the little bell next to it. That way you get notified when we go live. That's your nice little reminder. And Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bring your questions, bring your comments, come hang out.
He meant 7:30 p.m. Eastern
Or
time.
7:30 p.m. Excuse me. Yes.
And this is your source for NFL, college football, all things basketball, right? And we sprinkle in some of the other stuff too.
Yep.
Check us out, playcollegesportstalk.com/live. And y'all know y'all need to be hitting that sub and that bell real quick and that share button.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and also check out my video on this page in reaction to Carson Wentz and his removal from the Washington Commanders. It's a fun time.
And if you want to probably hear even more about Carson Wentz outside of that video in all things Philadelphia Eagles, tell them where they can find you out tonight.
7:30, excuse me, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 𝐒𝐻𝐈𝐍𝐿EE Podcast. That's at youtube.com/@𝐒𝐻𝐈𝐍𝐿EE Podcast. Let's go.
We're giving out times today for all the people who be late. That's what we're doing. We're giving y'all early time so y'all will show up at your normal late time, but you'll be on time. So
hey, for 𝐒𝐻𝐈𝐍𝐿EE, if you late, early, as long as you show up, we good.
Hey, whenever you show up, whether it's the day after, 2 days after, as long as you show up, it's all love.
That's what matters.
We'll see y'all Friday night, man.